Her name was Sylvia, and she was 71, and she had been a librarian for 34 years. She was retired now, had been for 6 years, but she still carried herself the way librarians do, with a quiet attentiveness, a habit of noticing things, a deep and unshowy comfort with silence. She had small hands and silver hair cut close, and she wore reading glasses on a beaded chain around her neck that her daughter had given her 2 Christmases ago, back when things between them were easier. Things weren't easier now. Her daughter lived in Portland. They talked every 2 weeks, conversations that were polite and careful, like 2 people walking a path they weren't sure would hold their weight. Something had frayed between them years ago. Not one big thing, but 100 small things. The way distance works. And Sylvia had gotten used to carrying that particular ache the way you carry a stone in your shoe. You notice it most when things are quiet. On this particular Wednesday morning, things were quiet. She had driven to the farmer's market on the edge of town. The winter one, small and unhurried, just a handful of vendors under white canopies with paper bags and cold hands. She liked it better than the summer market. Fewer people. The kind of place where vendors remembered your face. She was standing at the honey table, holding a small jar up to the pale November light, when she heard it. A sound she recognized immediately, with the particular recognition of someone who had raised a child alone, a toddler, somewhere behind her, working up toward a full cry. Not hurt. She could tell the difference, but lost. That specific pitch of a small person, who has turned around and the familiar face, is not where it was. She turned. The little boy was maybe 2.5. Dark coat, red hat slightly askew, a mittened hand pressed to his own cheek in the universal gesture of overwhelm. He was standing perfectly still between 2 canopy tables, turning his head slowly left and then right, his face doing the terrible thing toddler faces do in the seconds before tears. That trembling stillness, that enormous effort to hold. There was no parent immediately visible. Sylvia moved without thinking. She crossed the distance in a few steps and crouched down to his level, slowly so as not to startle him, and she said, in the particular voice she had used for 34 years, with frightened children in libraries, calm, warm, not too bright, "Hey there, little one. Are you looking for somebody?" The boy looked at her. His chin wobbled. "It's okay," she said. "We'll find them together. What's your mama look like?" He blinked. And then, with great seriousness, he said, "Pink." Sylvia almost smiled. "Pink," she said. "Good. That's very helpful." She stood slowly, took the gentlest hold of his mittened hand, and began walking. And sure enough, 30 seconds later, a young woman in a pink down vest came around the corner of a vegetable stand with the expression of someone who was aged 3 years in 90 seconds. Phone in hand, head swiveling, color drained from her face. She saw them. Her whole body exhaled. She crossed to them in 4 quick steps and dropped to her knees, and pulled the boy in and held him, pressing her cheek to the top of his red hat. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Oh, thank you." I turned around for 1 second. I was looking at the... "Thank you. I'm so sorry." "Thank you." "He was brave," Sylvia said. "He didn't cry." The mother looked up at her with wet eyes, and the boy, now entirely reassured by the pink vest, had already moved on emotionally, and was pointing at a nearby table of root vegetables with renewed interest. The mother laughed. That particular laugh that lives right next to tears. "He's always braver than me," she said. Sylvia squeezed her shoulder once, gently, and went back to her honey. She bought the small jar of clover honey, and walked to her car and sat for a moment before starting the engine. The grey sky hung low and close over the rooftops. Bare trees. A few last leaves. She thought about her daughter, about how she might call her today. Not on their scheduled Wednesday, not waiting for the right time, but just now, in the morning, the way you call someone when you miss them. She took out her phone. She called, It rang 3 times and then her daughter answered, voice slightly surprised. Mom? Everything okay? Everything's fine, Sylvia said. I just wanted to hear your voice. A pause, and then softer. Yeah, me too, actually. The young mother's name was Priya, and she was 34. And she was the kind of person who apologized for things that weren't her fault. She'd been that way since she was a girl. Too quick to take up less space. Too practiced at making herself small and smooth and easy. Her husband Rohan loved this about her, and also worried about it, in the way that the people who love us most sometimes hold. 2 contradictory things at once. After the farmer's market, after the fear and the relief, and the laughing, crying moment in the aisle, she drove home with her son Ardi in the back seat singing something tuneless and content, and she felt scraped open. In a good way. The way close calls leave you tender and awake. She thought about the woman with the silver hair. The way she'd crouched down without hesitation. The way she'd taken Ardi's hand, like it was the most natural thing in the world. She hadn't made Priya feel like a bad mother. She hadn't given her a look. She'd just helped. Clean and simple and unhurried. Priya dropped Adi at her mother-in-law's and drove to work. She was a physical therapist at a small outpatient clinic on the east side of town, and her first appointment of the day was a man named Gerald. Gerald was 67 and recovering from a hip replacement, and he was the kind of patient who made physical therapy harder by trying to be fine. He'd arrive early, sit in the waiting room completely still, and answer every question with not too bad even when Priya could see from the way he moved that it was considerably more than not too bad. Today she noticed something different when he walked in. He was moving better. That was real progress. Genuine. Worth noting. But his face was off. Not in pain. Something else. Something quieter. She got him on the table and ran through the initial assessment. And when she asked him how he was sleeping, he paused a beat too long before saying, "Fine." She let the silence sit for a moment. She'd learned to do this, to not rush in and fill it. "My wife's been having a hard time," he finally said. "Insurance issue with my medication. She drove all the way across town yesterday to sort it out, and she didn't say a word about it, just came home and made dinner." He paused. "She worries about me and she hides it, so I won't worry about her worrying. Sounds like she loves you a lot," Priya said. 42 years, Gerald said. "You'd think I'd have figured out how to make it easier for her by now." Priya moved his leg slowly through its range of motion, watching his face for tells. "Can I say something that might be slightly outside my professional scope?" He almost smiled. "Sure. The fact that you know she hides it, that you see it, that's not nothing. Some people spend 42 years and never learn how to see the person right in front of them." She paused. "You see her." Gerald was quiet for a moment. His jaw worked slightly. "Tell her that," Priya said. "Not the insurance thing or the driving across town. Just tell her you see her." He nodded once slowly, like a man storing something carefully. At the end of the session, when he was getting his jacket on, he said, "You're good at your job, young lady. And I don't just mean the hip." Priya smiled. For a moment she felt, in her chest, the same warmth she'd felt in the farmer's market, parking lot. That particular warmth of being reminded that ordinary moments can hold something real. Gerald drove home. He pulled into the driveway of the house he and Diane had lived in for 19 years and sat for a moment, looking at the kitchen window, where he could see the warm light on, and the shape of her moving past. He thought about what the therapist had said. "You see her." He went inside. Diane was at the counter chopping something, still in her work clothes, and she looked up when he came in with that smile she gave him. The automatic one, the one that said "You're home. Good." And then went back to chopping. Gerald set his keys on the hook. He walked to the counter. He stood beside her and he said, quietly, "Dee." She looked up. "I see you," he said. I know you went across town yesterday. I know you do 100 things and you don't tell me because you don't want me to feel like a burden." He paused. "You're not carrying that alone." Diane stopped chopping. She looked at her husband of 42 years, this man with the healing hip and the quiet eyes, and the veteran's hat hung on the hook by the door, and she felt something in her chest unlock that she hadn't even known was locked. Her eyes filled. She put down the knife. "Okay," she said softly. "Okay." He put his arm around her shoulders, and she leaned into him and outside the kitchen. Window the November dark had come, down fully, warm lights against cold glass. The two of them standing in their kitchen the way they'd stood in 100 kitchens across 42 years. Later that night, Priya put Adi to bed and sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, and she thought about the chain of it, the way the silver-haired woman had steadied her this morning, and how that steadiness had traveled somehow into her session with Gerald, and how Gerald had gone home carrying something she'd said. She didn't know what he'd done with it. She'd never know. But she thought about how kindness moves like that. Not in straight lines, not in announced and documented gestures, but sideways, quietly, through the ordinary hours of ordinary days. A hand reached down to a frightened toddler. A shoulder squeezed once in a market aisle. A truth said plainly in a therapy room. A man who finally says "I see you" to the woman who has been quietly carrying him. None of it was loud. None of it would ever be a headline. But it was real. It happened. It moved through the world and changed the shape of the day. For every person it touched. Kindness still exists, Priya thought. Not loudly. Not perfectly. But stubbornly, insistently, in the spaces between things, in parking lots and therapy rooms and kitchens, where the light is warm against the dark. So tonight, as you let the day settle and you're breathing slow, I want you to hold that thought the way you'd hold something small and warm in your hands. Think about the hands that reach toward you today, or the ones that will, tomorrow or the day after. Think about the kindness you've offered without knowing it, the steadiness you've passed along without realizing, the quiet moment you made easier for someone, the word you said that traveled somewhere you'll never follow. You are part of this. The chain doesn't break because you don't see the whole of it. Kindness still exists. It existed today. It will exist tomorrow. And somewhere right now, in a kitchen or a parking lot or a small room lit against the dark, someone is being seen by someone else. And that is everything. Let that be the last thing you carry tonight. Let it be light. Let it carry you all the way down, gently into rest. Good night.